It all starts here. It is the month of May in the Indiana state, and welcome to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. It begins, though, with a road course race. Welcome to the 5th round of the 2023 IndyCar Series Championship, and this is the Indy Grand Prix, the GMR sponsored event as well. We've got a 2-day event across Friday and a Saturday race as well as we prepare for Tuesday, when we going as well for the 6-hour testing per day, of course, as well, in the lead up to qualifying in just a week's time, and then we get all the action as well going in for race time. 500 miles is the name of the game for IndyCar in 2023 in just 2 weeks' time, and this is the first taste. We've had several drivers who've won the GMR Grand Prix go on to win the 500. What's going to happen here today? Practice one's underway. Let's go over to the IndyCar Radio Network.
Best race in the world, with all my family here, my girlfriend, my backers. It's just, it couldn't be better, it's just incredible.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. Road course at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. This is the NTT IndyCar Series. With complete coverage of today's practice, this is the IndyCar Radio Network.
November, December, designated the most wonderful time of the year, but those of us fans of motorsports would argue this is indeed the most wonderful time of the year. It is May, and we are at the world's greatest race course, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and 40-some-odd hours of programming over the next couple of weeks, taking you through the Indianapolis 500. Mark James, Davey Hamilton. Before we get to that, preparations are underway for the GMR Grand Prix. And as you join us, the green flag flies, and Davey Hamilton, we are indeed home for the next couple of weeks.
Okay. Sorry about that, Mark. We got new system in here, Mark. Trying to figure it out.
Something about old dogs and new tricks.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah,
so,
there you go. Okay, I thought green meant go.
You're
and red's go.
You're up to speed.
So yeah,
red means hot.
It's great. It's great to be back here. Obviously, Mark. Right now, it's exciting to see the cars out. We see a little moisture on the track right now. Not bad. It's a little slick out there. We see. I think that was last year. We're watching Colton Herta in his race. Sideways down through behind the museum last year, but right now they're out on track. They're getting some heat in the tires, but you're right. It's May. May's here. Starts with this road course, but can't wait for a few more weeks to see the biggest race in the world, the Indianapolis 500. Got a lot of cars. Going to see some bumping this year, Mark. 34 cars in there, but right now we have 27 of them going to challenge this road course this weekend.
Yeah, this is a great weekend because the entire ladder series is on display. We'll have complete coverage of not only the NTT IndyCar Series, but Indy Next, presented by Firestone. Happy to have them with us this weekend. And, Davey, we were here a few weeks ago for the open test on the Oval, and, I've done a few interviews this week, and, everyone says, what's the driver's mindset? Can they totally and completely focus on the task at hand of this GMR Grand Prix, or is there the distraction of what's just ahead, the importance of the 500? And while certainly the temptation is there, bottom line is this. You simply cannot focus on the Indianapolis 500 because you've got a championship chase, and you want to make sure that you're totally focused on this GMR Grand Prix, simply because you want to go into the quote-unquote month of May with all kinds of momentum.
Yeah, exactly right. And it's hard, Mark, because you're at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the home of the biggest race in the world. But this road race is a big thing, too, because, as you just said, it counts as points. These drivers, aiming for this championship. So you're in the garages that you're going to be in all month for the 500, but it does take a little turn. You have to refocus and say, okay, we do have a race before the Indianapolis 500, so we have to focus. We have to be good, and it's probably hard for these drivers to get kind of acclimated to that. Right now, it's really challenging for these drivers as well, because as we just seen them go out for their little warm-up lap, and it's still wet. The majority of this track is still not raining, but it's just damp out. We see Colton Herta, he getting out of his car right now, probably not willing to go out and risk his car, in these conditions. And do you run wets? Do you run dries? Are you going to learn anything this morning on these track conditions? It looks like the rain may be gone for the day, at least the early part of the day, where qualifying it takes place for the next practice session and qualifying to take place today. So could be a situation where they're just going to kind of hang out and wait and see if the track dries out.
Well, as we often see at the start of the session, of course, rookies are among those that get an extra set to run in this session. And to that end, normally in these initial practice sessions, we see a lot of the veterans, understandably so, in terms of tire management for the course of the weekend. They take a wait-and-see approach, while those rookies with those extra sets are the ones that typically will turn laps for the first 10, 15
let the rookies go dry the track out, right?
Yeah, that's right.
They'll go give it a test. But you're right. The rookies, they definitely have, we see a little fire in Colton's car, too, over on the left side, Mark. See some flames coming out of that side pod. That's not a good sign. So could have some issues with Colton Herta's car right now. And as much time that these rookies need and to continue to get a little extra lap time on these racetracks, much needed, but I don't know if these conditions, as I said, are going to be favorable for them.
Well, to talk about the conditions, let's get more on that. We welcome in for the month of May. Been with us for a few years now. He is the radio voice of the Purdue Boilermakers, and we're happy to have with us throughout the month of May, Rob Blackman. Hello, Rob.
Hello, and happy to be here, Mark and Davey. Thank you. And as you said, Mark, to open this broadcast, the month of May, this is when we should celebrate Christmas, because it certainly feels like Christmas. A couple of updates. We'll start with weather conditions right now. The ambient temperature here in Speedway is at 71 degrees with a track temperature of 78.3. Just a very, very slight wind, 4 miles an hour, blowing out of the east-southeast, so not a real concern wind-wise. But to follow up on what Davey was talking about, wet tires or dry tires to start with, everyone went out on dry tires, blacks, and also, you guys were talking about the veterans doing one install lap and then parking that thing at pit road. We've seen that here with guys like Scott Dixon has done that. Roman Grosjean has just done that. Pato O'Ward, the same thing, and the same can be said for Scott McLaughlin as well. So that's what's going on here at the north end of the track, and I'll keep my eyes peeled for other activities. But to say that it's a very uneventful start to this practice session would be a bit of an understatement, because not much going on right now, on-track activity anyway.
Yeah, Benjamin Peterson is the lone taker with A.J. Foyt, and he is out turning laps. And, Davey, you're right, courtesy of our multi-screen monitor, that there's still plenty of moisture on the racetrack. And I wouldn't necessarily classify it as hazy sunshine, but I would say that the humidity level is up just a bit, and this is a massive facility, and it takes plenty of time to dry, especially when that humidity level.
Yeah, that's right. With the humidity high, as we see Peterson, he's had enough of that as well. He's already going to come down pit lane, Mark. And pit road's probably the most damp at this point. I mean, it has moisture pretty much all through it. Track's starting to dry out just in a few areas, but just really, really high risk right now to go out on this racetrack, especially if you're on wets or on dry tires. It's definitely high risk because of where that moisture is, it's going to have no traction, but it's not wet enough to put the rain tires on and ruin a set of rains. So, just like sit and wait situation right now.
Issues for Colton Herta, as you pointed out, some flames coming out of that car, and it looks like they have put it on the quick jack, and they are hauling it back to the gasoline alley for a look-see. So we'll see if that's a situation to the point where it's going to impede his opportunity to get any practice in. They do have one more practice session, Davey, a little bit later on at 1 o'clock Eastern. They get 1 more hour. This is a bit of a rarity and somewhat of a condensed schedule. Sometimes we will have a practice session on Friday and then a Saturday morning practice and then qualifying and then go racing on Sunday. But today, going to get all the practice and qualifying in today before we go racing tomorrow.
Yeah, they consolidated this into a 2-day event, and the reason they do that, Mark, is just to make sure that, like I say, practice starts on Tuesday for the Indy 500, so it gives these teams a couple days to turn their cars around. And by the way, gives this track a couple days to turn the speedway around. They have a lot of changes to do from road course to oval configuration here at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, so gives everybody just a little bit of time to get really prepared for that Tuesday. So they decide to consolidate into a Friday, Saturday, and we'll have a nice race tomorrow afternoon.
So do you assume, and I know the majority of them do, and they used to test a few weeks ago, so Davey, my question is, do all of these teams already have a quote-unquote Speedway car prepared and ready to go?
Let's put it this way. Majority do. I would say 80% of them. This car is not where they're going to be racing it for the 500 and for practice week. This is more than likely their backup cars for the 500, but these are designated for road and street courses. And so, yeah, some teams don't have the budgets to have those additional cars, but majority of the teams do. And that car's all finished off, slicked down, aerodynamic, body fits perfect, and ready for this oval.
Well, take us on a lap around this place. I mean, it's a little under 2.5 miles, a very long straightaway that we are high atop. It's 5/8 of a mile in length, but it's about 2,869 feet. There are 14 turns in all, 5 to the left and 9 to the right, and there are 2, I think, primary passing zones. Tell you what, let's talk more about that track in just a moment. Let's welcome in Ryan Marine.
Well, Colton Herta out of the car. We saw the fire on the replay. Do you have a sense for what caused it?
Not sure. My best guess right now is probably oil. As they put oil dry down, so I imagine that's what it is. But yeah, I'm not sure. It's a brand new engine, brand spanking new, fresh off the dyno. So hopefully it's not too big of a problem. My feeling wasn't that it had a big blow up or anything like that. There was nothing out of the norm until I came in and they told me it was on fire. So hopefully it's just an oil leak. Maybe an oil line was left loose or whatnot, and hopefully it didn't hurt the engine in any way. We can get that fixed. We can get back out here as soon as possible.
Do you anticipate that could be in this session?
I'm not putting it out. I'm not sure. Obviously, if it's an engine, then no, we'll be out. But no, if it's something as easy as an oil line and didn't damage the engine and they're happy to keep running, then yeah, we'll be out there.
If you can't get back out, or even if you can, but you miss significant time, how much of a setback is it on a weekend like this?
It's super important because this is the first session, right? So everyone's going to get a leg up on me. And more importantly, you get to run reds in this session. That's the real killer about not being able to run this session. But, hopefully we get it back in time and I'm back out here just in time for when it completely dries up and everybody cleans the track up for me.
We hope so, too.
Thanks.
That is the race winner at this event 1 year ago, Colton Herta.
Yeah, 3 podiums in all, Davey, a first, a second, and a third, and clearly this is a place that Colton Herta is always competitive and likes a lot. It suits his driving style.
Yeah, it really does. And we talked about this course, Mark, and it's a good time to bring it in. Colton likes those fast, his first win at COTA, same thing. Fast, sweeping, really has a flow. The road courses have a flow. They're not awkward, I should say. They're fairly straightforward, but they're fast, high speed, and a few technical areas. And as you said, down this long front straightaway going down to turn 1, that's obviously the best passing zone going into turn 1. We see them go down there 3, 4 wide. It's always exciting, especially the starts and restarts get through that turn 1. And when you get to turns 2, 3, 4, 5, we see every now and then we'll see some overtaking, but most of the time it's flat out through there. But when you get to turns 5 and 6 going on that back straightaway, that kink, you need to go through there wide open. And when you miss it or you have to lift a little bit, that's another great passing zone because you go down that long straightaway into turn 7, and they pile up down there pretty good too. The second best passing zone of this road course. Behind the museum, we talked about turns 8, 9, pretty straightforward. But coming to turn 11, you're coming from the infield onto the short chute down in turn. It would be turns in between turn 1 and 2 on the oval. Short chute. There's a bit of a banking change there. There's a bit of a bump there. That's another good passing zone going into 12. And so it leaves a lot of good opportunities. We've seen passing everywhere on this racetrack. Don't forget, when it's rain and dry, it creates excitement. But it's super fast, good flow. And one thing it is here is when you strategy plays a big part in the race tomorrow, for sure.
In terms of, obviously, road courses don't compare, but in terms of street courses, and I would say all of the ovals, is this the flattest track that we raced on all year?
Yeah, it really is, because everywhere we go, we just came from Barber, and gee, what crazy elevation changes there. But as far as any permanent course we go to, from Mid-Ohio to Road America, they all have really nice elevation changes. This, for sure, is the flattest, and rightfully so, because it's in the middle of, the world's greatest for speedway, and use a lot of that speedway itself to try to make it, make it competitive for everybody and good for the fans, so the fans can see everything.
So you hear drivers talk about wanting to achieve balance in terms of the setup because it's so flat. Is that the entire focus, is achieving balance on the race car here?
Yeah, balance is key anywhere, but here especially probably. And I think that one thing that's fairly difficult is you need to make sure that you come onto these long straightaways with a lot of speed, a lot of momentum, meaning you have to get on the throttle early. So there's 3 really key areas on this racetrack going onto these straightaways that you really need to make your car good. You really need to have that speed in that area to keep the competitors behind you. So I think they're going to focus on that. Right now, as we continue to look at the track, there's more and more cars coming on. We see Stingray Rob right now going around. He's coming onto that back straightaway. It's drying out actually pretty good. A few small damp spots, but the line that they're running in seems to be drying out pretty well.
Stingray Rob, Augustine Canapito, and Benjamin Peterson, the 3 takers. And again, we've reached now 15 minutes into this session, and so we think within the next 5 to 10 minutes or so, activity should start to pick up. And when it does, we will see a lot of folks in a championship chase, Davey. We've got, I think, somewhere in the neighborhood of 60 points separating the top 10.
Pretty amazing. I mean, it's going to be an all-year battle, and we talked about this a little bit before of how many competitive cars there are year in, year out of this series. But right now, I have to say, kind of looking back to the first 4 races, and I just look at, I have a couple drivers and a couple teams that really stand out. Those drivers are Scott McLaughlin and Grosjean. Romain Grosjean has done a great job. His points position doesn't really show for it. He had opportunity to win. Both those drivers had opportunity to win the very first race at St. Pete. Unfortunately, got into each other. Grosjean actually took the lead at Texas. Right. I mean, that coming from Formula One and not knowing if he even liked ovals was very competitive there right at the end. Got together with Malukas. None of his doing, by the way, but took him out of that event. He set on a couple poles. He's run some seconds. He's close to winning races, but very consistently up front this year. And Scott McLaughlin, I don't need to tell you about him. I mean, he came off, being so hot last year, and he hasn't slowed down any. And right now, him and his teammates, Power and Newgarden, seem to have that mojo going again. They're getting along great. The cars are fast, but it seems McLaughlin has the best results so far.
Yeah, it's interesting to note that with all of the success that it appears as though that Romain Grosjean has had, he's got to be a bit frustrated by being some 41 points back.
Yeah, like I say, it's knowing that he's been up front in all of these races, so he has some ground to make up. He's still definitely in contention. We got to remember there's only four races down, so I think that he's a driver that I think that came to the series on fire. We all talked about how fast he was with Del Coyne, and then he thought, he's going to Andretti. Oh, watch out. But he just really didn't have that luck, right? A lot of mistakes on his side, I have to say. A lot of incidents, a lot of unpleasant competitors that were driving with him that he got into. But I really feel this year he's done a lot of work over the winter, a lot of homework, a lot of soul-searching, and he just seems fast. He seems consistent. And he also, most importantly, seems really, really fast.
There was some talk at the start of the season with the addition of Alexander Rossi at Arrow McLaren that, there would be somebody ready to boot Andretti Autosport out of the Big Three and join Penske and Ganassi. But we look at the championship chase right now, and we see Alexander Rossi currently 13th in points, and Felix Rosenqvist 16th in points.
Yeah, both those drivers have had some issues. Some of them they're doing, some of them not really. I mean, just circumstances as well. But I'll have to say, I agree with the talkers. I think McLaren it could be that Big Three right now. It's Penske, it's Ganassi, and it's a fight right now between Andretti and McLaren. Who's going to be the Big Three? And right now, McLaren, and they're not. They may be leading the pack, actually. Pato obviously is, a contender week in, week out. And we've seen, Rosenqvist sit on the pole at Texas, didn't have a great race. We've seen, obviously, Rossi, new to that team, he's shown speed and shown consistency. So I think he's going to do nothing but get stronger as the year goes.
To Pit Road and Ryan Marine.
Had a chance to speak with Mike Shank. A couple of cars here for Simon Pagenaud and Helio Castroneves. This was a great place for Simon and the team last year. Had his best result of the season at this track. You looking to capture a little bit of that lightning in the bottle to jumpstart your year here this year?
Absolutely. These guys always do a good job here at this place, and we love this place. And starting the month of May out here is exactly where we want to be. And we look forward to getting the AutoNation Sirius XM cars up front and get some momentum going this year.
Road course, oval, does it matter? You're still at IMS?
At IMS. If you get on that podium, it matters.
It's a busy weekend for your team. You've got programs here and also across the country in California running at IMSA. I know you're used to it at this stage, but it's still a little bit extra to try and keep your mind on.
It is, but we love it. This is what we asked for. We run the Acura program out there and look forward to seeing where we're at with that. That program is going really well, and we look forward to running there later today.
Good luck this weekend and the whole month.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, there's no question, Davey, that that race team could use just a little bit of luck.
Yeah, I had a good conversation with Simon last week, just kind of catching up. Actually, been a while since we've been able to talk for a while, and frustration's there. He goes, he knows that Elio and himself, they haven't forgot how to drive overnight. He knows he has a great team underneath of him. Meyer Shank gives him, a really good program. He's really happy there. It's just they haven't been able to get the results that they want this year. Now, we got Andretti Technologies. I think that's going to improve for them a little bit as well. So I'm looking to see good things from Meyer Shank later on this year.
We'll talk more about that throughout the course of the show. Let's hear from Kyle Moyer, race strategist for Team Penske. Rob Blackman.
The strategist for Scott McLaughlin and the GM for Team Penske as well. Safe to say, Mr. Moyer, you guys are coming in here on the right foot, considering the win at Barber for Scott just a couple of weekends ago?
Yeah, I'd say yeah. Right foot right now, but it hasn't been the greatest of year. It's been a little bit of an up and down, but we got it all right at Barber, and when we get it all right, that's what's going to happen. So yeah, we got some good momentum, some good confidence in Scotty, and that's the biggest thing to get going. Coming into May, you want confidence in everybody on the team, and I think the team's pretty confident right now.
What about the strategy here this morning? It appears to be a hurry up and wait strategy. Is it just a matter of waiting for the track to get a little bit drier, or what's the thinking here?
A little bit of that, and just letting some people get their runs in and stuff. The rookies went out, and now some guys are starting to go out. The track looks pretty quick. Last year it was in the 69, high 69s in practice one, and we're already in the low 70s. So the track's got plenty of grip right now.
The Penske team coming into the month of May. If you had to put it on a scale of 1 to 10, where you feel like you're at as far as where your team should be at this time of the year, where would you say you're at?
Well, for pressure-wise, it's a 12. I'm going to reserve it. Nobody knows. We came in here, we had a good test at the open test, but that's a test. So we'll see what everybody's hand is later in the week, next week. But it means a lot, it's the number one important race for us. It's the best race you can have, and it's the only one that matters. So right now, it's high on the scale.
Kyle, thanks. Good luck to you and Team Penske this month.
No problem. Thank you.
Good stuff from Kyle Moyer. And we talked at Barber, and I asked him about the test, and he said, we felt really good after the test last year, and quite frankly, we didn't show up and have the greatest of May in terms of our expectation level. He said, so, I'm cautiously optimistic about it. But, a lot of respect for him. A lot of folks have it in terms of a race strategist. His success is well documented. And, he made the three-stop strategy work for his driver. He started fourth, and he played it to perfection, which each and every stint, that three-stop strategy and the timing of the stops allowed him to go, full bore and not have to worry about conserving fuel.
Yeah, well, when it comes to putting a race team together, and if I have to choose my fantasy team, and if I could ever drive for somebody, it'd be Moyer and Ben Bretzman. They're together for McLaughlin. I think they're the two of the best in the business. And Scott has, he's very fortunate to have those two guys. And time and time again, they find themselves on top, winning a lot of races, all that group. So, he's got a really good hand. I think they're a threat every single race. We just talked about how I think that they're top every weekend pretty much. Now, the 500 does play a different part. We've seen Roger Penske, he won this 17 times. We've seen him miss this race before. We've seen was it Power? Yeah,
a couple of years ago, Will Power almost didn't make the weight.
Here's our all-time pole sitter, leading in get most poles ever in IndyCar series, and he barely makes the darn race. So you just never know. It doesn't matter if Penske's rode on the side or McLaren or Andretti or Ganassi. this is a tough place when it comes to fighting.
Yeah, Nick Yeoman and Alex Wolf and I were talking a couple of weeks ago at Barber about how every year someone like a Will Power, we remember Fernando Alonso a few years prior to that get knocked out late. You always wonder each and every year, there's always a notable name that struggles to make this race.
Yeah, that's right.
And you just you wonder from our perspective, who is it going to be?
Who's that going to be? Yeah. And we know there's one car going to miss the race. Now, you hate that for that one driver that's going to miss this race. Who's it going to be? Who knows? I know that the 34th entry, R.C. Anderson, with that Able Motorsports team, is the one going to attempt to get in this 500. What that does is, it leaves the full-time teams basically. Somebody, they're not all full-time teams. For example, McLaren has Kanan. Is it going to? But they're so strong. I expect Kanan to make this race because McLaren seems to be so strong right now. And some of these teams have added additional drivers. We've got Catherine Legge at Rahal. We'll see if Rahal, their oval program usually was pretty darn good, so we'll see how it works here. But that's one team, another team, I should say, not one, but that's another team that has just struggled for speed the start of the season.
There's to that end, Lundgaard is 12th in points, Graham Rahal 16th in points, Jack Harvey is 23rd in points.
Yeah, that tells it all, right, Mark? I mean, when you see really the Foyt team and the Rahal team at some of these practice sessions early on, we know that they need to find some speed. Unfortunately, they're just not there. And when it tells you it's the cars, it means all the drivers are the same speed. No matter what driver they have, they all were at the bottom of the chart. So I'm excited to see Ferrucci around here. We know that he's plenty brave. He's had some good runs here. I think he felt pretty confident after the open test here, so it's going to be exciting to see if it's AJ Foyt. Wouldn't you love to see that team win this 500 again? And so hoping the best for those guys. 17
of the 27 now taking laps, Davey. So business starting to pick up a little bit with 49 minutes remaining in the session.
Yeah, and as we talk, who goes right to the top? But Grosjean, with the driver we talked about, it just seems to have good speed this year. Seems to have that confidence. He's out there in that number 28 Andretti car looking really good. How about this? We just talked about Rahal. Well, Lundgaard, we've seen him set on the pole for this event before. I think, he was on the pole for a road race, I think, a few years ago. He shows all kinds of talent, Lundgaard does, and finds himself second right now. And how about this? Another rookie of Armstrong out of that Ganassi team, P3. Newgarden, he's back on track, or he's on track right now with that Penske car. The fastest Chevrolet at this point in P4, and Jack Harvey, another Rahal car in the top 5. So, and how about Graham? You got 3 of the Rahal cars in the top 6, so maybe they have found a little speed for this month.
Will Power has been on pole several times here, in fact, back in 2022, also in 2020. He went back-to-back for poles in 18 and 17, and the first time he set on pole was in 15. Others who have set on pole here, Felix Rosenqvist has done it a couple of times. Pato Award. Grosjean was a pole sitter here. Rinus VK, and as we mentioned, Felix Rosenqvist been on pole a couple of times here. And it's just yet to put it all together, but he's always been fast here.
Yeah, one thing for Rosenqvist, we didn't know if he was going to have a job coming into this year, and it all worked out where he does. And likable guy. I mean, he does try hard. I think he's got loads of talent. Got a lot of pressure. I think he puts too much pressure maybe on himself sometimes. The team obviously is behind him, or he wouldn't be there. And I just think that when he's out there by himself and really focusing on laps, he really stacks it in there and does such a great job. But it seems like a little pressure during the race and some misfortune actually too, that just some strategy didn't work his way, and a few DNFs for mechanicals over the last few years haven't helped him either.
Jack Harvey, P2, and we remember last year we used it in a promo, in fact, that we asked all the drivers about various courses and everything. Jack has had a fair amount of success here. As a matter of fact, Davey, he said it's hard to come here and not have a lot of warm and fuzzies.
Yeah, well, yeah. As you said, we talked about that Rahal team, and there he goes. Jumps. Matter of fact, as we talk, he's P1 right now. Jumps to that fastest, top of the charts with Newgarden. Rosenqvist, here we just talked about him, how much he likes this place. He's P3 right now. Grosjean and Rahal, Lundgaard. It's back to the Rahal cars early on right now seem to be good.
21 of the 27 entered have turned laps. Jack Harvey is currently P1 with a time of 1:10.412. Then it's Newgarden, Rosenqvist, Grosjean, and Rahal. Lundgaard, Armstrong, McLaughlin, Malukas, Pagano through 10th, Daly 11th, Kirkwood, Power, Robb, Calamilot, DeFrancesco, Ferrucci, Peterson, Catapino, Rossi, and Alex Palou through the 21st position. Jack Harvey again, P1 with a minute 10.412. So how much of this session, or is all of this session devoted to qualifying sims? Because you won't be able to use the alternate during that 1 hour practice later today.
Yeah, I think that right now, I think with the track conditions being a little damp still in just certain areas, I think, and it's the first time on the track, Mark, I'm going to say they're more just getting the car balanced, probably more of a race sim than they are a qualifying sim right now. Not that there's a big difference on this course, by the way, but right now I just think they're just trying to find that balance to get the car comfortable, find where their strengths and weaknesses are right now in this first session. And then when it comes, as we see when the McLaren cars overshoot turn 1, we'll see that happen periodically this weekend. And I think that is numbers. I get those cars, by the way, the McLaren cars all have that orange on them that makes it so difficult to look. But I think that was Rossi in that number 7 car that went off. And yeah, it was Rossi. So I think that's where the really key is right now. Let's just get a good balance. Let's find a good race car. And then later today, the next session and later today, they'll work on qualifying just a little bit more.
This track has evolved over the years since it was first constructed, talking about the road course. When they did so to welcome Formula One, MotoGP's been here, and various other forms have competed on the road course, the infield portion of this track. Made some alterations to it now a number of years ago, and I think they went about it the right way because, as I recall, Dixon, Dario, Tony Kanaan were all involved in that process, and they made this, I think, a very racy track and gives ample opportunities for passing here.
Yeah, and I think what they did from the original layout was one key one coming onto that back straightaway where it's a super fast kink in turn 6 and 7 back there. They've changed that. That was almost a sharp right corner into almost an oval situation before they came onto the straightaway, which just followed the leader. You couldn't really do much there. And then they changed coming off that short chute back into the infield in turn 1. You remember the first course was Formula One stayed up on the racetrack originally, and they felt it was just too fast going through turn 1 backwards. So, but right now this track, I can say it flows really good. It's fun to drive. It is flat, but it's very competitive as well.
Back to Ryan Marine.
Agustin Canapino just brought his Juncos Hollinger Chevrolet into the pits after running a couple of laps. They're making some adjustments on the car, and I've got a chance to catch up with Ricardo Juncos, team owner. Let's talk a little bit about Agustin first. Really impressive in the first couple races of the season, maybe hitting that rookie wall a little bit in the last 2. How would you assess his progress through the last 4 races?
I think he's doing a great job. This is, like I said before, the first time ever for him as in an open wheel car. So it's a lot to learn, and I think he's doing everything that we asked him for. He's doing a great job. Every race is a new venture for him. This track is more similar to the one he raced in Argentina, so maybe that helped a little bit, but at the same time, it's so tight normally this particular weekend. So I think he's doing a good job, and looking forward to the continuation of the going.
Callum continues to be quick week in and week out. That's in the sister car. How would you assess his development now, about a year and a half into his IndyCar project?
I think it's great. I mean, it's just step by step, and we just try to keep hitting our marks and the plan that we set. Otherwise, you just get confused and things can go wrong pretty quickly here. So I think it's just a matter of go steady and learn from the wrong mistakes that we do as a team as well. Going with 2 cars is so different and so difficult. So we're going forward together as a team with the driver and the team every race a little better.
This weekend, we weren't sure if we could see some rain, maybe not. Would you welcome rain this weekend, or would you rather keep it simple for your guys?
No, I rather keep it simple, but you never know. So we cannot control weather. It is what it is. For everybody the same, but hopefully it stays dry.
Your goals for the weekend, what do you think you can accomplish?
No, I think we have keep developing the team. I know Carlo Milo was doing a great job last year. We were fast. I think if we can improve a little bit the car compared to last year, he's going to have a shot. He's looking for that now, second year, and in Agustin's situation, he's just to keep learning.
Thank you, Ricardo.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, over the years, when drivers have said on days when weather could be a factor, then they say, well, honestly, I wouldn't mind the rain. I'm telling you, I don't buy it. I mean, there's so many. I guess from a standpoint of some teams, it's an equalizer, the great equalizer, because then it truly becomes the same for everyone. But as we talked about before we went on, when we had these discussions and a couple of interviews we've done this week, I've made the observation that my preference is, from a strategic standpoint, to either start in a designated wet situation and have it dry, or start in a designated dry and then maybe get some rain about halfway through and see what that does.
See what it does, yeah. And I agree with you, Mark. I don't think rain is that much fun for anybody, but I think what happens is some of these drivers that from basically European drivers, they race in the rain a lot.
Right.
And I think when their cars aren't good, that they kind of hope for rain because they may excel. They may have a better opportunity to win the race in the rain. And, there are some, I call Simon, Pagenaud is one of them. I think Rossi even coming, kind of his background. Rosenquist, I think some of these guys are pretty darn good in the rain. And we've seen Colton Herta, I think, he almost spun out in the wet conditions, but still pulled off a win here. So I think if your car's off, that you don't mind the rain, but majority of these guys want to see it dry for sure. And as an owner, I'm almost guaranteed there's way less chance of car damage in the dry than there is the wet.
40 minutes remaining in this session. Alex Palou has gone to P1. Harvey remaining near the top. He's second quick. Newgarden, Rosenquist, and VK the top 5. Award, Rossi, Dixon, Grosjean, and Rahal the top 10. 26 of the 27 cars have turned a lap. Colton Herta, Davey, if you're just joining us, folks, he did not get to complete a full lap. An oil fire on that car, and they had to roll it back to the gasoline alley and make the necessary repairs. It remains to be seen if Colton's going to be able to get out for the session or not.
Yeah, it looked like an oil fire on that left side. There's some coolers and oil lines down there. Looked like possible fitting, breaking, or a hose loose or something, a failure of a cooler or something. But, yeah, he's back in the garage area. Has not made it back out yet. As we see a picture of Scott McLaughlin, he white-walled the car already. Looks like the left side of his car, so probably maybe coming onto the speedway, going into turn 1 or coming on over, off of turn 10 or 9 and 10, maybe scuffed that wall just so slightly. They're not going to change those tires, but you can see they're white-walled right now.
Well, it's kind of been feast or famine here, Davey, in terms of cautions, and we talk about how unforgiving the runoff areas can be here. 3 times over the years in 17 and both races in October of 2020, a year that we all want to forget for many, many reasons. But those races all ran caution-free. But, however, a year ago we had 8 caution periods here.
8 caution, yeah. No, it can happen both ways. And I think this track really is pretty darn forgiving. So I think it's a situation where majority of the time we can go with fewer cautions than more here just because of the forgiveness of this track.
Rob Blackman.
The strategist for Will Power is Ron Marzewski. Will just left the pit box about 15 seconds ago. Talk to me about what you're trying to get accomplished here this morning.
We're just working through, test list of items, just getting him ready. First was basically a basic check, getting him up to speed. Now we're just working through some setup changes. Track was a little bit fresh because of the rain last night, so just kind of working through those things right now, getting him some time. We'll get some red tires on here later and see where we end up.
Will Power, obviously the defending series champ from a year ago, but as we fast forward to 2023, do you feel like you have maybe some momentum, especially coming off a podium finish at Barber, that third place finish for Will just a couple of weeks ago?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we had a good run at Barber, and, we're just chipping away at it. Everybody's getting in line, and, best time to peak is in May, so we'll see how it goes.
Will is a veteran, obviously. This is nothing new to him, but if we just go back to a year ago, Will has a third-place finish here in the GMR Grand Prix. What can you take from a year ago that maybe helps you this season?
Indianapolis is always a good place for Will, especially here, so, we just want to cap it off and start some momentum getting forward and try and get him on the podium and try and get his win streak going here again.
Thank you, Ron. Good luck to you this month.
I remember a story Simon Pagenaud told about when he was a teammate with Will. They were setting in a motor coach, I believe it was, at the infield, and he was having a conversation with him about nothing to do with racing. And he said that I said something to him, and he was just staring off into space, and it finally almost had to startle him. And I said, "What are you doing?" And Will said, "I'm trying to figure out how to get faster through turn number 7 at the road course."
Yeah.
You know, that's the level of intensity that will power it.
That's right. No, and I mean, a lot of these drivers, but you're right, they really visualize, they focus. I mean, you're thinking about it all the time, Mark. Honestly, you're, weeks before the race, during the weekend, you're looking at every single thing, where you could excel, where you could be better. And then once you get in that race car, it doesn't stop. As a matter of fact, it gets more intense, and you're looking at every bit of data, looking at what the other drivers are doing. How about the Ganassi team? We haven't talked about them a lot this morning, but Palou and Dixon, P1, P2. So that Ganassi team seems to have a little something for this road course. But these drivers, to be competitive, it's a job. It's a full-on job, and you're thinking about everything you could do to, try to win these races.
Quick recap of Barber, Davey, our most recent event, and the kind of race that guys like you and I enjoy, because the lap distance is enough to make teams decide between a 2-stop and a 3-stop strategy. Your race winner, of course, played that 3-stop strategy to perfection. It didn't work out for some. 2-stop strategy didn't work out for most. Looking at some of the numbers, Grosjean led 57 laps all told, did not get the win. McLaughlin led 24 laps. Newgarden led 6. Will Power led 3. And sometimes that strategy is dictated by how clean the race is or it isn't. And there was one caution for a total of 3 laps from 39 to 41.
Yeah, right, exactly. And cautions play a big part in that strategy. We know that. I mean, for that 2-stop strategy to work, that really meant that they were counting on a lot of cautions, or caution laps, I should say. Not as many as amount of caution, but caution laps, to try to help save some fuel to where they could run richer. But it just did not work out for them. And there were a lot of those, how frustrating is it for a race driver to be out on that racetrack and not be able to go for it, not be able to, you're out there saving fuel, you're just, just biding your time and trying to hope for a yellow. But when you have the 3-stop strategy, Mark, it's full on. You're going as fast as you can the entire time. And as you said, it worked for Scott. He did a great job just taking advantage of that race later on, because Grosjean, if you remember, got around him, and actually started pulling away, but being on that different strategy, he just couldn't hold on. And when Scott, had full rich and was able to have that extra power, once he got back by Grosjean, which was not easy for him to do, pretty much checked out and left him in the dust.
And specifically, the top 10 come into this event separated by just 45 points, and Ilott in 11th place is just 50 points back. So, with all of the points that are up for grabs this month, between the point you get for pole and the points you get for winning this race and winning the Indianapolis 500, it's always interesting. There might be some thoughts given to the championship this weekend. There may be some discussion about it, but when we get to next week, it's all about winning the Indy 500.
It really is. I mean, obviously, you're still looking at that points championship, even though there's so many races to go. But really, the focus is, if you win the Indy 500, everything else is secondary. I mean, I think that if you talk to any driver, any team, they'll ask, if you win a championship or the 500, what do you want? They're all going to pick the Indianapolis 500 over a championship. So that's all about winning the 500. But then if you don't win it, you got to make the most of it, and gain as many points as you possibly can, because that's the next best thing, is the championship. And now you have to really focus on that. And consistency wins championships. We know that. And there's a lot of these drivers that seem to be pretty darn consistent this year. A lot of speed, it's so competitive. And we continue to say that like a broken record, but it's just a fact. I mean, I think this is the most competitive series in the world. I don't know that there's anyone, if you look at our times from last to first and how close these teams are and how fast these drivers are, I think it's arguably the most difficult and most challenging series in the world. And then another thing that we have to throw in there, we are the only series, I continue to say this, that compete on short ovals, large ovals, road courses, and street courses. Now, I shouldn't say NASCAR is going to Chicago for a street race this year, so it kind of puts them in that same element as well, as you have to be good at every discipline to be fast, but we run more of each of those than any other series.
Well, from the NASCAR world, if Landon Castle wanted a response to a tweet recently, he certainly got it, in terms of saying that they were the most the diversely talented drivers on the face of the earth. That was not well received by most people.
I would like to bring him. I'd like to bring him and set him in a few race cars and just see how Mr. Castle would do.
And we've talked about this before. The unfortunate thing about such conversations and such debates is that, Nick Yeoman and I are fortunate enough to take part in that world, and we're honored to do so with our friends from PRN. And I know we have Brad Gilley and Brett McMillan, and those guys work with us, and they're happy to do so, and they enjoy doing it. And if it's got wheels and a motor, I'm a fan.
Yeah, me too.
That's
Absolutely.
my mindset,
I'm a huge race fan of all sorts of racing, and I've been very fortunate to race pretty much every kind of race car. I mean, there are obviously several that I have not, but I've been in stock cars. I've been in most of the majority open wheel, but. When you drive these cars, until you're in them and you do it, you don't realize how difficult this really is. And so, and some of the race courses we go to are just extremely challenging. And when you look at our rules package compared to most series, it's probably tighter or more equal than anybody else.
Can't get much more competitive than one win getting you a championship like it did Will Power.
Yeah, that's right. It's just,
that's it.
Absolutely. It's that tight. And hey, there's drivers that have gone both ways. Obviously, right off the bat, Tony Stewart, Juan Montoya, Sam Hornish. Some have had success on that side, some have not. But I think that if you talk to any of them of the biggest challenges between IndyCar and NASCAR, I think it'd be pretty much unanimous that this is, higher speed. Talk to Jimmy Johnson.
Yep.
Just ask him about it.
Palou, Dixon, Harvey, Newgarden, and Erickson the top 5. Rosenquist, VK, Award, Rossi, and Grosjean in the top 10. And we're staying pretty consistently, Davey, in the 110s right now. The only driver in that, Alex Palou. Everybody else pretty much firmly in the 111 range. And we expect speeds continue to pick up in the last 30 minutes of the session, especially as the surface continues to dry.
Yeah, we do. That 110 looks like that's going to be fairly easy for this entire grid to get to. Now we'll see as tires are getting worn down right now. They're starting to get some cycles. Heat cycles in the tires are slowing down somewhat. Track's probably getting a little bit better, but at the end of this session when they put some new tires on, as we see in the garage area, that looks like they may be doing a motor change on Colton Herta's car. Can't really tell exactly what they're doing, but looks pretty extensive.
67.7044 is the record here. Will Power, of course, holding now. Let's go back to pit road, check in with Brian Marine.
A couple of Ganassi cars, 1-2 on top of the scoring pylon. Alex Palou currently P1. Up on his pit box is where we find Barry Wanzer. So how much do you read into the fact that you got a couple of Ganassi cars 1-2 right now?
Well, it's certainly nice unloading off the trucks and being quick right away. We'll just keep fine-tuning the car to get as much speed out of it as we can. Doesn't like everybody's going to be doing, but right now it's nice seeing the Ganassi Hondas up front.
What's on the run list for a session like this? What are you trying to accomplish?
Everything we're doing right now is to get ready for qualifying. So at some point here in the session, with about 20 to 15 minutes to go, we'll run the reds, the alternate tires, and we'll see how good we are on those as well.
We always see track evolution, but in this session in particular, it started with some moisture on the track, and now presumably that's gone and the rubber's starting to wear down. How much has Alex talked about how the track has evolved?
Yeah, once it was dry enough where no one would run red, the wets. So once several cars did a bunch of laps, it was just rubbering in every lap, just keeps getting faster.
Lastly, we've seen Alex consistently towards the front, but maybe not at the very pointy end of the first 4 races this season. The consistency's been great. How close are you to breaking through for the first win of the year?
We're certainly right there. If you're qualifying up front and running up front, good things will happen. I can tell you, it just shows how hard it is to win an IndyCar, how competitive it is. So, we'll get there. We just got to stay up front like we've been doing.
Appreciate the time, Barry.
Thanks. Thank you.
9 points back, Davey, in the championship chase. He is in 3rd place behind Award and Marcus Ericsson. And since he arrived in this series, quite frankly, especially since he landed at Ganassi Racing, has been a model of consistency.
He really has, Mark. He's the next Scott Dixon, really. I don't know where his future holds or where he's going to be, but I tell you, he is just everywhere we go. You can never count him out. And a good guy, very competitive, fun to watch, and we'll see. Where he ends up. But right now, he's a guy to beat.
I don't know that you'll ever see a driver in this series that dealt with more issues off the track and handled it more gracefully and more sportsmanlike than he did last year. I think he gained the respect of a lot of people.
Yeah, because he, like you mentioned it, Mark. He didn't miss a media opportunity. He was in front of the fans, the people. He didn't brush it aside or try to hide from it. He took it head on, and I think majority of that was kind of behind the scenes, and then he didn't, between agents and the team, and he just kind of, he wanted just to race and try to stay focused, which he was able to do. And it looks like in Colton's car, just as a note, I don't think there's an engine change, but I think the fire must have burnt some wiring, maybe some wiring looms in that car. Looks like they're changing some wire looms. Obviously, it was an oil fire. With let me see, how much time we have left, Mike? We had a little over 26 minutes left. There may be an opportunity for at least Colton to get out, maybe do just a kind of an installation check just to make sure everything's good with that car again, and maybe get a few laps in. But right now, that car is still back in the garage area.
Well, he's a former winner here, and let's face it. I mean, does this place change that much? I mean, in terms of the surface and whatnot. So in that regard, they should have a pretty good data pack.
That's right. The teams have notes now. This track has not changed. The driver knows these tracks. This track is especially pretty darn good. He has teammates with data, and they're going to tell him kind of what the track feels like. And then if you look at the speeds, they're really pretty consistent year in, year out around here. So I don't think it's going to be a huge deficit for Colton.
Ryan Marine?
Well, and if you were wondering what Colton's been up to since he had to hop out of that race car, he just went down a couple of pit boxes, and he climbed up next to his dad on Kyle Kirkwood's pit box. Of course, his dad, Brian, now the strategist for Kyle Kirkwood this year, and he's had the headset on. He's been listening into team communication, trying to glean as much as he can from outside of the car in this session, and try to make sure it's not too big of a hole to climb out of when that car does get back out on track for Colton Herta. And we talked about the fact that he won last year, and he did, and it was in very wet conditions, but maybe we forget that he very nearly swept the 2 road course races here at IMS last year. He was firmly in control when he had a mechanical issue in race 2. That was at Gallagher Grand Prix over the summer on that shared NASCAR date, and that's what allowed Alex Rossi, his teammate at the time, to come through and get the win. So wet conditions, dry conditions, it really doesn't seem to matter last year. Colton Herta was fast in all of them.
Davey, in terms of the manufacturers battle, right now in this session, we've got 4 of the top 5 are Hondas, Chevrolet 6th, 7th, and 8th, Honda 9th, and Chevrolet 10th. The battle right now, Honda with 325 points, Chevy with 312. But just like for these teams and these drivers, while certainly the season-long championship is important, they've got their eye on the big prize here in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, no question about it. And that's changed. It started off the season with Chevrolet on top. Then Honda was able to have a sweep in Long Beach and really got a lot of points, shot them back out front. So that's something that they look at. You're right, Mark. It's very important for them to win that championship.
Rob Blackman.
Let's visit with Ed Carpenter of Ed Carpenter Racing, and let's start with this. How good does it feel to be back in Indianapolis for the month of May, sleeping in your own bed?
Yeah, it's the longest time of year I'm ever home year-round, so it's great. And on top of that, we're here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, which makes us all happy.
I want to talk about both of your drivers competing this weekend. Let's start with Connor Daly, right now 18th fastest, and also Rinus VeeKay. What have you seen here early in the practice session from those two?
I think they're both getting comfortable. Rinus is a little quicker right now, but I think both cars will be strong. So just work through the test list here. The conditions are getting better and better as we go, so see how the day ends.
Red tires towards the end of the practice session, is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, everyone's got to run a set of reds in this session, so you'll see here probably the last 10 to 12 minutes most guys putting the reds on.
Well, one quick thought on one more on Connor. 5th in the GMR Grand Prix last year. A little bit of momentum. I know it was a year ago, but you have to feel pretty good about especially what you saw last year from Connor.
Yeah, it's certainly anytime you have results somewhere, it's a confidence boost the next time you come back. And historically, we've had good cars here, so hopefully that holds true, and we've made them a little better to get back on top.
Thank you, Ed. Good luck to your team.
Thanks.
Yeah, and Rinus VeeKay, a pole sitter and a winner here as well, Davey.
With that same team. So, obviously comes in here with some confidence. Hopefully, they've struggled with some setups and some things early this year. But, man, we know how good Ed is on the ovals, and we're expecting big things for here in a few weeks on the oval. But right now they're focused on this road course. And as you say, VK not only a pole sitter but a winner here.
Back to the discussion about Colton Herta, and you heard him bemoan the point that he doesn't appear as though that he's going to get an opportunity to turn laps in this session and do so on the alternates. But, Andretti Autosport as a team in 9 starts here has recorded that one win with Colton Herta. They finished in the top 3 5 times and recorded 5 top 5 finishes, and they've led 75 laps. So this is a team that, while they've certainly been proficient on the oval over the years and had success here, both as Andretti Autosport and Andretti Green Racing, they've had their share of success on the road course here as well.
Yeah, not as much as they want, though, right? I mean, yeah, they have stats, they have win, and they know how to lead races, but they're not, like I say, the last few years has been tough for Andretti, and I think, Michael, I seen an interview with Michael basically saying, we, over the wintertime, we really sat and looked at each other and said, what do we have to do as a team to make our team better? And he feels like they really came up with a lot of opportunities, solutions, or hopefully solutions to fix their performance problem. And they're pretty darn excited to get that win this year. It's been a while since they've had those wins, but with Kirkwood as a rookie getting that win in Long Beach, you could really see the excitement in that team, in the entire team, to kind of like be back in victory circle, and maybe the things that they've been working on over the winter are starting to pay off.
Well, for sure, Ryan Marine, and all the forms of motorsports you cover, you've seen it time and time again. Oftentimes, the best results come when you're struggling a little bit, that, you work on yourself instead of worrying so much about what your opponents are doing. Let's get an update on Colton Herta's situation.
Yeah, I think that could very well be what he's looking for here this weekend. Back up against the wall a little bit, but the good news is he just hopped off of that AutoNation pit box, ran down to his Gainbridge pit box, grabbed his helmet, and made his way down pit lane, and ultimately made the turn towards Gasoline Alley. And I asked him, hey, is the car fixed? And he kind of shook his head and said, I don't know, maybe, but I think there's a chance that they could get back out. That's why he grabbed his gear. So we got, just over 20 minutes left in this session, and Colton heading back to get in that race car. If they've got it all squared away, he'll head back out and hopefully get to turn a couple of laps here in this practice.
Well, I think it would be significant because of the timing of it, Davey, because he'll get plenty of work on the primaries in that 1-hour session later. I think it's very significant for him to be able to get back out there without 19 minutes left to have an opportunity to turn some laps on the alternate.
It'd be great just to turn some laps, right? Just to make sure that, okay, the car's fixed, the car's good. Let's forget about this session. We have another one. We're going to be just fine, and we still have the opportunity to not only win this race but set on the pole. So it's all just focus. As I say, a lot of cars coming in pit lane. It looks like Scott Dixon may have ran out of fuel or something, going really slow down pit lane right now.
Yeah, that almost looked like a race conditions under caution or something. I mean, there were like 6 cars coming onto pit road all at once.
Yeah, one thing that you do, when you practice, we talk, you're out on track, you're trying to get as much speed as you can, you're going as fast as you can. But another thing that you do during these practice sessions is work on your in laps and your out laps to make sure you come down pit lane as fast as you can. Make sure that you get in your pit box properly. So it's not just about the speed on track. As Scott Dixon just creeps down pit lane, finally makes it to his pit stall down. I think he's third one back, Mark. But something seems to be askew with that car.
Well, Barry Wanzer said it, and certainly they're backing it up. He said, we're always happy when we unload fast. And to that end, Palou and Dixon are 1-2. Marcus Ericsson currently 7th quick for Ganassi.
Yeah, and that's pretty impressive. I think Harvey, he likes it. As we just were talking to Ed Carpenter about VK, a pole sitter winner here. Look at him. P4 right now ahead of Newgarden and Power, the 2 Penske cars. So a couple of new names right now as far as this year, Harvey and VK up in that top 5.
Yeah, warm and fuzzies apparently continue for Jack Harvey because he's currently 3rd quick.
Yeah, that's right. Just everything's good. He loves it. He likes his place, obviously. His car seems to be pretty good. You look at the rest of the Rahal cars, they're all decent. I mean, they've fallen down. Rahal now in 15th himself, Lundgaard in 17th. But Jack Harvey, he does say he loves this place. He knows how to get around here. P3 right now.
Under 18 minutes remaining in this session. Palou, Dixon, Harvey, VK, and Newgarden in the top 5. Power, Ericsson, Rosenquist awarded Pagenaud the top 10. Rossi, McLaughlin, Daly, Grosjean, and Rahal through 15th. And David Malukas, Lundgaard, Marcus Armstrong, Callum Ilott, Kyle Kirkwood through 20th. Castro Neves, Rob Peterson, Ferrucci, Devlin DiFrancesco and Augustine Canapino currently running in the 26th position.
Yeah, and I have to say, Dixon, back to him, we talked about him coming down pit lane really slow. Looks like just ran out of fuel. That's sometimes a really good thing, Mark. Sometimes to run these cars completely out to make sure that you're getting every bit of fuel out of that tank. He didn't cause a yellow, no problems. I think they're going to fuel him up and be able to go again. And it looks like they're not too panicked down there. So looks like maybe that's the only issue with him. Another, our 500 winner right now, let's keep eye on him. He has a lot of confidence coming into this month. Erickson, he's in that Ganassi car as well. Obviously, P7 right now, behind his teammates running first or second. So just shows you that these guys when they come to Indianapolis, they come for business, that Ganassi.
Of course, Joseph Newgarden walked away from Barber a little disappointed. He had some contact early in the race that affected the handling of that race car. He said at one point it felt like he had a left rear tire going down, but all the telemetry, the data said no, but there was something wrong with that car that just wouldn't allow him to turn it.
Yeah, and at one point, boy, we seen him come through that field, right? I mean, he was so fast, and a lot of the guys thought, how are we going to stop him? He was passing guys, right, left, and with ease. But after that small contact, the toe or something, rear toe or something happened to that car to where it just wasn't handling. He was actually just hanging on. Later in the race, we seen him absolutely struggling and begging to come into pits for his last pit stop. So not what he wanted. I think he was frustrated with himself as well as just obviously the result of that event.
The ongoing saga of Colton Herta, the most recent update now from Ryan Marine.
That is the sound of the engine that is installed in the back of Colton Herta's number 26 Honda. It just shut off just a few moments ago. There are still crew members, I'd say about 6 to 8 of them, pouring all over the Gamebridge Honda right now, including crew members from other Andretti Autosport crews as well, pitching in to help out. The engine is installed, but all the cowling is off the back of that car. Body work is still off of that car in addition to the cowling, and it does look like there's still quite a bit of work to be done with this vehicle to get back out here in this practice session. Colton Herta watches the proceedings from the back of his garage, just kind of leaning up against one of the toolboxes in the back of that garage, watching his crew and the Honda technicians also here with laptops plugged into that machine, doing their best to get this problem rectified. Certainly there is an air of immediacy about the work that is being done. They're making every effort to get back out on track, but as we know, time is running out, sand running through that hourglass, and not sure that there's going to be enough time to get that car on track just based on the way this car is currently in a state of disrepair.
A single install lap is what he's been relegated to, and pulled it onto pit road, and there was that fire, which they believe to be an oil fire, and they're working feverishly to get repairs made and maybe give him a couple of laps, but as Ryan just alluded to, the sand continues to run out of the proverbial hourglass as we're sitting at 14 minutes remaining in this session. We can tell you it's a busy day for us here. At 11 o'clock Eastern, Nick Yeoman, Davey Hamilton going to take you through our first practice for the Indy Next, presented by Firestone. And then we will be back with IndyCar practice session number 2 at 1 o'clock Eastern. Then the Indy Next series will qualify at 2:20 Eastern. And then we'll have IndyCar qualifying at 4 o'clock Eastern this afternoon, which, of course, knockout qualifying and the Firestone Fast 6. And Davey, because of the level of competition and because of the very slim margin that separates, as we mentioned, that the top 10 in points, it wasn't that long ago that the goal was simply to get into the round of 12. But I think that has shifted to the point to where, as we saw Joseph Newgarden when recently he qualified 7th, he was almost beyond reproach, and let's face it, the goal is to get in the Fast 6 because of how ultra-competitive it is.
Yeah, it sure is, and you got to remember that how disappointed Colton Herta with Newgarden, a lot of these drivers that don't find themselves transferring into that second round, how disappointed they are, but you know how difficult, that shows how difficult it really is.
Rob Blackman.
Standing alongside Larry Foyt, the president of AJ Foyt Racing. He also sits on the pit box as the strategist for Santino Ferrucci. Let's start with Santino Ferrucci, and obviously you're trying to find some speed here this morning, right now running 25th. What is the concern?
I think we've made a lot of gains, just the good of the tires gone. So we're kind of interested to see when we put the reds on if we can gain some spots here. But yeah, I mean, this has been a track we struggled at on this road course for sure. But I think on the used tire speed, we're not bad. So hopefully it translates this when we put some stickers on.
You talk about struggling here, especially the road course. When you look at it, you look at all the data. Is there anything specific that you say, man, this is why we're struggling, or is it a number of things?
Sure, it's just this type of track, kind of like Barber, these permanent road courses. We just have a little trouble turning the tire on, meaning for some reason our package just isn't generating the tire temp, I think, that we want to get the grip out of it. So it's just stuff. We're trying a lot of new stuff, different damper combinations that are new to us. And so we'll see. I mean, it's still a lot of weekend to go.
And to that end, Peterson currently 24th, Ferrucci 25th, Davey.
Yeah, that's right. They're definitely struggling. And talked to Larry, briefly too, and I think that he named it shock package. Dampers are so important in this series, and I think that that's where that team has fallen behind, and they're trying to rapidly get back, get something going in that program to find some speed. Hard to do in the middle of the year, right? In the, testing's all over. It's race time. So, and as we see right now, as you talked about reds going on, well, his first driver put reds on is heading out right now. That's Peterson in that 24th spot. But we see Ilott, Harvey, VK, a lot of these drivers, Power, Rosenquist, Award. The reds are going on right now, and that's where these we're going to see these times start dropping.
Well, Davey, there have been 13 races here on the road course at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. If we go back to discussing qualifying for just a minute, 5 NTT P1 award winners have won from the pole.
Yeah.
5 of the 13 has been won from the pole.
Yeah, it's pretty, I think, important to be up front. I think back to what we talked about, it's a permanent road course, as Larry mentioned. It's very fast. It's very, the momentum is there. I mean, it just is a comfortable road course, just a lot of fun. But it's still technical. The speeds are high. Whenever you got high speeds, it puts that little extra challenge into it. But you have to hit it just right. And as you know, it's a long road course. A lot of corners that you could mess up here, and so you have to get it perfect.
Rossi, Herta, VK, Dixon, Newgarden, Pagenaud, and Power are the drivers competing this weekend who have won here. And we will watch the times and the pace start to quicken. We see Lundgaard go to P1. He and Jack Harvey run 1-2, Davey, and they're both in that 69 range already.
Yeah, we're in that 69 race. Kyle Moyer told us that's where they expected to be. So the track conditions and speed's basically where it should be from years past. So you're right, Lundgaard. It's the red tires of the top 4 right now, which is Lundgaard, Power, Harvey, and Pato Award. 2 Chevys, 2 Hondas. All in those red tires right now. Any
place where curbing is a concern, or is it pretty smooth and considered part of the racing circuit?
Well, the curbing actually is very forgiving here, except for a few corners, Mark. And I think one of them that we know of that you got to be pretty careful is turn 1 itself. Pretty big curb right there that you do not want to hit. And then we've seen it before, turn 6, going onto that long back straightaway. If you get too far to driver's right, that curb sent cars airborne, actually broke tubs. We've seen cars get completely all 4 tires off the ground when they try to cut that corner or miss that corner. So I think that is key. And then there's another one down at turn 7 off that long straightaway in the back. You don't want to mess with that curb too much. Very sharp corner, hard braking right there. And we see cars try to go there 2-3 wide sometimes. But after that, I think curbing's pretty mild. But there are a few areas that you need to pay attention to.
Well, as we mentioned, 7 has a bit of a forgiving runoff area. But, when you head north along this 5/8 of a mile straightaway and set up for turn 1, if you overshoot that, it can be kind of a thread-the-needle process to get yourself back out.
Yeah,
the race
so,
course.
Right now I just looked on how the re-entry is off turn 1 back on the racetrack. We've seen Rossi overshoot it. It doesn't look like a time loss right now. It looks like if you overshoot that corner, you take that accessory road to get back onto course, you really don't lose much track time. We've seen Rossi come back on. Helio Castroneves was right behind him, and they came out, really side by side. Matter of fact, a little too close for comfort right there. So I wouldn't be surprised if they do something to try to slow that re-entry down just a little bit, to try to make it a little more of a deficit for the driver that overshoots turn 1 to come out farther back of the pack than right where they were.
Just below us, we see the 10 of Alex Palou in his pit box, and he's been sitting there for a few minutes now. He's got the alternate tires on the car, Davey, and but we can only assume that this wait-and-see approach is because he wants to do a true qualifying session.
Yeah, and right now, one thing that they do is they do want to get clean racetrack just like they're qualifying. He is the fastest driver right now on the black sidewall tires. He's a P7, but the fastest of the standard sidewall tires. These teams have telemetry just like we do. You can see where all the cars are when you send them out, if it's clean racetrack, because we see him trying to push out right now. Joseph Newgarden not being able to fire. Something seems to be an issue with that car right now. But right now they just sent Palou off, and that tells me that he's going to come out and clean racetrack where he'd be able to get up to speed and not have to worry about any traffic.
Snap-on Tool sponsorship on that car. The good news is it's a really cool-looking race car, but as Nick Yeoman and I were discussing before we went on, the bad news is for guys like him and Jake and Michael is that it looks just like Will Power.
Yeah, well, when I first seen it, I'll be honest with you, I almost called it Will Power. That's what took me a second because I go, is that Will? No, that's exactly like it, but that's number 2. That's not Will. So you're right, man. That car, it does look good. That snap-on livery on but that red, black, and white looks just like that Verizon car for sure.
See, it's why we appreciate Scott Dixon so much.
Yeah,
because
that's right.
you know who Scott Dixon is, and, of course, he's easy to find because he's usually up front.
Yeah, usually up front. You're exactly right. There's a few that really stand out, and as much as the McLaren Orange, we looked at, and, boy, it really stands out. Unfortunately, though, they have 3 cars that have that orange on there. They're hard to differ from each other. But then there are going to be 4 when it comes to the Indianapolis 500 with Tony Kanaan joining that team as well. So some of these cars, like I said, you could definitely, they stand out and you know who they are, but boy, every now and then that's pretty difficult.
Interesting to note that by and large, those that we saw up front on the primaries, Davey, appear to have things sorted out on the alternates. Pato Award is at P1, then Lundgaard and Harvey, Rosenquist, Will Power in the top 5, BK, Grosjean, Palou, McLaughlin, and Simon Pagenaud, the top 10. David Malukas flirting with the top 10. He's 11th quick on the grid.
Yeah, Malukas, we talk about him a lot. You know, I mean, I know he's with that Del Coyne team. Had a really good year last year. We feel like he could get victory lane. Just hasn't shown the speed maybe the start of this year that they had the end of last year, but we always need to keep an eye on him. As we said, Pato Ward finds himself at the top. Not a surprise. He's been one of the consistent drivers towards the top of the field as well. Could have very easily won the first 2 races. I mean, he ran second the first 2 races of the year, Mark. And you know, ifs and would-haves, if he didn't have that little plenum fire in St. Pete, I think that was his, as Colton Herta is getting pulled into his pit right now. That would have been his race. And then the second one in Texas, I think if the yellow doesn't come out with him and Joseph, that he really had a good opportunity to win. As I said, Colton Herta just pulls right out into pit lane. He's in that car. Looks like they're going to fire him up really quick. Only 5 minutes left, basically, in the session. But enough to go out there and make sure that they have the issue fixed.
I will say that it is under race conditions in terms of the veracity in which they're attacking that race car now that they have him back in the pit box. I mean, they want to get him fired up, get him out for a couple laps anyway.
You could see the urgency with all the team and how fast they pulled him out. They got the toe tires off. They got some race tires on. Starter plugged in. Looks like they're getting all the telemetry all hooked up and ready to go. Get Colton for sure buckled in that car. So he will get out and at least do a system check for sure.
About 4 minutes remaining in the session. Award, Lundgaard, Harvey, Felix Rosenquist, McLaughlin through 5. 6th is Ericsson. 7th is Power. 8th, BK. 9th, Grosjean. 10th is Palou. 11th is Rossi. 12th is Pagenaud. Malukas 13th. Graham Rahal 14th. Kyle Kirkwood 15th. Dixon is 16th. Eilert 17th. Di Francesco is 18th. Elio Castroneves, Davey. It's been a struggle for him in this session. He has been mired around 19th or 20th most of the session. Joseph Newgarden still showing as being on the primaries as 20th. See Joseph back out on track very, very soon. And then Armstrong, Daly, Canapino, Robb, and Farouk.
Yeah, there is some struggle for several of these drivers right now. Let's start at the fast ones. Lundgaard shoots back to that second position as Award, Lundgaard, Palou round out that top 3. But, yeah, we expect to see something like Armstrong's falling all the way down to that 24th spot. Expect to see a little bit more out of him. Obviously, Newgarden in 22nd. They had issues getting out of the pits. We just seen they got the problem solved. He's back out on track right now, the Reds. We expect to see him go up the chart. Dixon as well in that 17th. But you're right. Castroneves just seems to be struggling. Pagenaud 15th and Castroneves 20th. That team, they're searching. They're working hard. He tells me he tells me how good they are and how hard they're working to get back up front, but seems like they're still struggling somewhat.
3 minutes to go in the session. Colton Herta is out now, working his way behind the museum. Before long, he'll be back out on what is turn 2 of the oval. And good news for him, Davey. He should be able to get at least a decent lap or two, although at this point it looks like he continues on those primaries.
Yeah, he's on the primaries. I think they're not too worried about the reds. An out and an in, just what I expected. You've seen the car bottom out just a little bit coming through that short chute, but tire temps aren't there yet. He was literally out and in. So he, with 2 minutes and 20 seconds left, I don't think he might be able to just do another out and an in before this is all over.
Yeah, 2 minutes, 17 seconds remaining in the session. Again, Pato O'Ward continues at P1, then Lundgaard, Palou, McLaughlin, Harvey through 5th, Rosenquist, Erickson, Dixon, Power, and BK through the top 10.
Yep, and right now you're exactly right. Looks like they're going to pull those primary blacks off Colton's car. Maybe put some reds on. I don't know. Maybe not. Doesn't look like too much urgency right now with 2 minutes left, as you said. Let's see. Right now, we've seen Frucci go out with those red tires. We're kind of keeping track of that Foyt team. Frucci 24th, Peterson 25th right now. Doesn't seem that they found the speed that Larry was hoping on those red tires.
It looks as though with the Honda engineer that is in that pit box, Davey, basically what they're doing is pouring it back over the car and making sure that all of the repairs that they made back in Gasoline Alley that they stuck, and now that problem is solved.
They know they obviously found the problem. Colton is going to go ahead and get out of the car. I don't think they really found anything in there. It's just with a minute left, there's really not much they could do, in safety-wise. So at least he got a lap in. They checked it. Looked like they looked in there and put the cowling right back on, so it looks like the issue's fixed.
Scott Dixon comes to pit road with about a minute remaining in the session. He is 8th quick in this session, and I think as we get inside of 1 minute now, I think a lot of these teams feel like that what they have right now is what they have, and we'll start seeing drivers filing onto pit road and hopping out of the race car.
Yeah, that's right. One thing that they do, which kind of surprised me a little bit, they have the red, softer sidewall tires. We've seen Pato O'Ward miss a corner, taking a little runoff. But they do it in the first session, not the second. You think they do it in the second session right before qualifying, but they don't. They do it in the first session, get it out of the way. So right now, we'll see how it all works out. But they're doing the best they can because this is kind of a qualifying sim on these red tires. One thing that red tires that they worry about doing is changing the balance of your race car. For example, you may have good balance on the blacks, meaning that your fronts are gripping the same as the rears. You're getting through the corners good. But with the red tires, it may change your balance somewhat and actually slow you down than speed you up. So they're all learning that right now.
We're watching Renus VK really flinging around the racetrack. See the rear end step out on him a little bit.
There you go. That's part of it right there. Maybe in the blacks it was good, but on the reds it made the back of that car get loose. And guess what? That's what Pato O'Ward. We see him completely sideways, in one of the corners. Had to overshoot the corner, and that was on those reds. Seems like maybe the red tires make the back of the car maybe just a little bit too free.
Well, we talked about how forgiving this place can be, and to that end, with the possible exception of the mechanical issue that Colton Herta had, it was a very clean initial session today.
Yeah, it really was. Nobody went off course. Colton, unfortunately, had that little bit of fire, cost him some time, but meanwhile, 27 cars have been on track. It only shows 26 right now in timing and scoring because Colton didn't cross the start-finish line to start a lap. So even though he got a lap in, it doesn't show him on that board. All 27 cars have made it on track. And right now, Pato O'Ward's going to be P1 after this first session.
A couple of notes. The countdown to this year's Indy 500 continues. Catch the first 3 episodes of 100 Days to Indy now on the CW app. Then mark your calendars for the next episode Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern on the CW. That's a cool show. Really well done, Davey.
Yeah, no, it's exciting to see this. I mean, been asking for that or hoping for that since I was a rookie in this series. So good to see. I think it's going to get better and better as we go. Gives a little insight of our drivers and teams and what they go through.
Had some success here in terms of qualifying over the past few years. Ryan Marine, 6th quick after this session. Felix Rosenquist.
A 2-time pole sitter at this circuit. So P6, your teammates P1. How do you feel about the package that Arrow McLaren brought to the IMS road course this year, Felix Rosenquist?
Good. I think we brought a simplified version of what we know in the past. We try to not make it too complicated, and we know we're quick here normally, especially in qualifying. Try to work on the race pace a little bit and try some little things here and there. But overall, I think the Air McLaren cars look strong, and Pato was P1 there. I think I had a bit more in my red lap, but it was good. It felt like we rolled off strong, and just some small adjustments into quali.
Got a chance to sample both the reds and the blacks in that session. How much of a difference is there between the two this year?
It's pretty big. I mean, the reds are normally the best tire here, and it's the same tire as always. So I feel like it's just more grip, and it doesn't deg that much either. So yeah, mainly it's a weak black tire. So yeah, I think red's going to be the one to go with, and you just got to keep those not too damaged going into the race.
How do you feel about your chances going for a third career pole with this track?
Well, I think as good as ever, really. I mean, honestly, it's anyone's to take, but I think we have the opportunity. You just have to execute. So, yeah, let's go all in quali.
Sounds like a plan. That's Felix Rosenquist.
Yeah, first and sixth. Their teammate Alexander Rossi, 17th quick after the session.
We seen him have a few little problems. He ran off course a few times. I think he'll go back and look at all the information from the other drivers, so he'll find some more speed.
Listen to us live each race weekend for complete coverage of every on-track session of Indy Next by Firestone and the NTT IndyCar Series. Find us on the all-new IndyCar app powered by NTT Data, racecontrol.indycar.com, and SiriusXM IndyCar Nation, channel 160. Plus, you can find all IndyCar races on a radio station near you. Lone Guard was second quick in the session with a time of 1:10.479. Pretty clean session for him, Rob Blackman. Rob?
I'm with Christian Lundgaard. Sorry, guys. Quick technical difficulty. Second quickest here in this session for the morning. Christian, your thoughts on what's obviously been a pretty enjoyable morning for you?
Yeah, I wasn't really too worried coming into here because I think we have a pretty strong package here at the Speedway for the road course, obviously. Seeing Jack up there is nice. Need to speak to him as well, what his thoughts were. But overall, it's the car's just great. It behaves well, balance good. So I couldn't really ask for much more.
Safe to say, going into the second practice session this afternoon, there'll be little to no changes to this car. Sounds like you're really happy with how it's performing.
Yeah, I do think we need to find a lot of pace in the wet, though. So if qualifying is going to go wet, we need to find something for that. But going into a slick race, I'm pretty confident.
Christian, thank you. We'll see you later today.
Yep.
He was P2, Pato Award, quick. Pelot was third, McLaughlin fourth, Jack Harvey fifth, Rosenquist, Erickson, Dixon, Power, VK, the top 10, Armstrong 11th, Kirkwood 12th, Rahal 13th, Daly 14th, 15th, Newgarden, 16th, Grosjean, 17th, Rossi, 18th, Pagano, 19th, Malukas, 20th, Rob, 21st, Ilott, DiFrancesco, 22nd, Elio Castroneves, 23rd, Ferrucci, 24th, Peterson, 25th, Augustine Canapino, 26th. Coming up, top of the hour. First practice session for Indy Next. That is 11 o'clock Eastern. We will rejoin you for the second practice session a little bit later on at 1 o'clock Eastern. The director of IndyCar Radio is Chris Pollock, Master Control Operations.
Well, my thanks to the team for that as well. Absolutely fantastic coverage throughout the broadcast as well. So it's Pato O'Ward then, who tops the session. He's done a 109.808 as well, with Christian Lundgaard in second position. Going to be absolutely fantastic what we're going to see later on in the action as well. Just turning off the radio coverage is still going on in my ears. Okay, practice 2 is underway later on in around about 2 hours' time. You can join us back here for all the action. The IndyCar Radio Network taking us through that one as well, but we'll have our driver tracker set up ready to go. So we'll see you later on. From us now, bye-bye.